Hello.
Good morning.
GM. Welcome to the party, gang.
Good morning.
We're just getting started. We're going to get started with a flying start into impromptu networking. And impromptu networking is super straightforward. We're just going to have a series of 3 different one-on-one conversations. And in those conversations, we are going to explore the same prompt or invitation in each round. And each one of those conversations will be between 5 and 10 minutes in length. And our invitation for today is, what is a topic that you are endlessly curious about? If that's liberating structures, awesome. Why? If it's not liberating structures, I mean, also cool. But the general vibe is, what is a topic that you will find yourself endlessly curious about? And with that, I'll invite you guys into a couple breakout rooms and we'll get to know each other. Da, 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 da. And let's see. There we go. Acre. Akla. Oh, I'm mute.
Always muted. It's Acre. It's Brittany.
Hey, Brittany. What's going down?
Not that. Not much.
Cool. So, what's something you're like infinitely curious about?
All things, but currently, I am working for a self-organizing organization. More in word than deed right now, though we're trying. So right now that's something that I'm super interested in, thus me finding this this meetup.
This space. Oh, I'm almost, somebody else is jumping into the mix.
Okay.
So this is an infinitely curious space for me as well, right? The world that is self-organizing. Yeah. Julia, welcome to the party. You're just in time.
Thank you.
Brittany and I, we're just getting to know each other, but I'm going to invite you guys into a space to do that one-on-one. Awesome. And the question that we're exploring today is, what is a topic that you are currently infinitely curious about? So you could just go on and on and on and on and still want to know more. So I'll invite you guys into breakout room 2 and get to know each other.
Thank you. And I expect my partner, John, to show up as well.
Ah, okay, great. Welcome. GM.
Hello.
Who am I and who do I want to be? That reminds me of this book I'm reading by Margaret Wheatley.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who do we want to be?
Well, indeed, and it's not how we want. It's not who we want to be, but how do we want to be?
Yeah. That's almost the same. From the way I'm looking at it, but I can find some nuance there. We are already started with our first structure for today, which is impromptu networking. So the invitation that I invite you, I guess, to discuss, as redundant as that is what is a topic that right now you are just the most fascinated and curious about? What has got your juices going? You just want to know more and more and more about. So impromptu networking is just going to be a series of one-on-one conversations. So I'm going to invite both you, Antonella and Rob, into room 3, and you guys can chop it up and get to know each other. What am I endlessly curious about? Yeah. The Web3 DAO space, that's for sure. Shout out to Taoist, Chewy, Zepti, all my homies from the TEC, Common Stack, Tam, and Lean and Anna Marie and Xavier, Regens Unite. Outside of that space, what am I curious about? Mostly that. I'm singular and focused right now. All things liminality. Yeah. All things Taoist, decentralized, autonomous organizationally, proof of learning, non-deterministic systems, agent centricism. This is an extraordinary amount of buzzword salad, I imagine. Holochain has my curiosity. Ethereum has my curiosity. Public goods. Regenerative crypto economics. I mean, just token engineering in its entirety. Let's see. How to build things, like not just in like DeFi, crypto, Web3 software space, but like building things. I say tried. I started fabricating 3 raised planting beds for my garden, and found that an extraordinarily like just challenging experience in a way in which makes me in one way go, oh yeah, this is just something I should not do. It's so like breaks my brain. It really has me looking at this and going, how in God's name could I possibly solve this puzzle, which is to make this thing? What I find so fascinating about it is I can totally see the gestalt, like the whole. I can see the whole box, but when it comes to the like narrowly, extraordinarily specific of like, how do I join this piece with that piece in order to make this whole thing? It just goes, fuck if I know, dude. I actually think about assembling the whole thing together. But then I'm like, yeah, but where do I actually start? What's the first screw that I put in to secure the whole thing together? And how do I, like, it is challenging in a way that I find, like I said, it makes me want to run away and recoil from it and avoid it. And there's some sense at the same time that like that would be the exact opposite of a functional response that like in physical reality of all things, like I don't have to be a pro word worker, but I do need to deal with like the confrontation of, oh my Jesus Christ, I don't know how to do this. And center and settle down and just like just try and see and learn. And then like fuck up. So I made the first side. That's all I got done yesterday was the first side, this 4-sided object. Of course, shit didn't line up. I mean, it's square-ish. Square is an interesting term. Both an aspiration and a curse. Like, don't hold squareness too tightly, at least for me. Well, probably not a good idea. It's probably limiting my future as a fabricator of any form, but you know. So I made this one section, and then of course I know heuristics. I measured twice, quite once, but I mean that doesn't change the fact that my math is bad. So it's it's too short for the four panels that I'm stacking up. Don't are smaller than the frame that I built to secure those panels. Makes me look at, oh yeah, well I added a centimeter on each one of these sides, and so yeah, there we go, 4 centimeters too short. Whoops.
Hi,
That's
Jeremy.
what's up. Hey, how you going, John?
Good. Where are you located?
I am here in Amsterdam.
Oh, fun. That's Jeff.
Yeah. There's Jeff. Welcome back. You guys saw the button. You guys are button pushers.
Yeah.
I can tell. Now I'm the same way. If the pop-up shows up in my screen, I'm just like, whatever, get out of my way. Read it, never mind. I'm just pushing the button.
I noticed that, to set up this meeting that there was a Google form. Did anyone fill that out?
Yeah, Jeffrey did. Awesome.
Okay.
Let me track that down.
I
Yeah,
should
that's what I was
probably-
sort of talking to John about. I'm sort of at a stymied with, it's more so knowledge management, and there's a lot of entrenchment, negative, intergovernmental, using the military terms of doctrine and best practices. So
Well, let's not step on our laughs. We'll get into that in a flash. First, we're just in the opening act of getting to know one another. But yeah, awesome. If we've got a design brief, that makes our life infinitely more clarified. So
I will
thanks for
actually.
that.
I'm going to write one pretty quick. I need to write one. I thought my partner did that, but
Oh, okay. Hey, and we've got one more into the mix at the perfect timing. So it looks like we have 2 briefs today. We'll have to shrink this time box to accommodate both of those. Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to the party, Samuel. We are in the midst of impromptu networking. So once more, I'm just going to swap some folks about, and you can talk amongst yourselves. Our invitation for today is, what is the topic or subject matter or thing that you're just the most voraciously curious about? And let's see, Yulia and John, I got the sense that you guys know each other pretty well.
yes, Julia brought me here. Thank you,
Okay.
Julia.
Cool. Well, let's see. Everybody should have the ability to move themselves into a different breakout session. So in case I randomly re-randomized you with the same partner, either you guys deepen your conversation or you use your feet to jump into another group and mix it up. So once more, what are you most curious about? All right, Mark, get set, get to know each other. And Samuel, you can hang out with me if that's cool. And if not, no, or not. Yep, I lost him. Oh, no, wait, jumped into a room. Also perfectly acceptable. Maximize agency. I think that is a great solution.
Hi.
Hello, hello. Samuel, what's up?
Nothing much.
Just trying to find your space.
Hmm.
I can dig it. So what are you curious about lately?
Like,
Ah, your connection is sketchy.
what do you mean? What do you mean? Am I curious?
Yeah, I mean, so is there a topic or anything at all in the world that you're like right now is like super fascinating for you that you want to know
Spanish,
more about?
Spanish, Greek, and Turkish, and Portuguese.
Languages.
Hmm.
What is it about these languages that like draws
And
you in?
Italian.
And Italian, because
Hmm.
Spanish, Greek, and Portuguese and Turkish. Like,
And Italian and Serbian
and
and Montenegrin.
okay, are you approaching these all in parallel or
Yeah.
no way? How do you do that?
I'm trying to learn lots of different ones.
Yeah, I I gather that. Like I I'm I imagine like the way in which your brain might program itself like
Mm,
in that thing could
mm,
be extraordinarily exhausting.
mm, mm.
I I'm see now I'm curious like what caused you to jump down the language rabbit hole?
Because I'm into the Mediterranean, and I really want a Mediterranean girlfriend.
All right. So these are I see. So these are local to your context then.
Mm.
Turkish, Italian, Spanish, Montenegrin. Okay. Greek,
Portuguese,
Portuguese as well. Okay.
mm,
I can dig it.
like the Algarve.
Cool. Well, I am currently obsessed with Web3
Bulgarian and Bulgarian,
and Bulgarian.
mm, and Tunisian as well, and Lebanese.
Right? So you're just like, yeah, if it's touching the Mediterranean, I want it in my toolkit.
Mm,
Cool.
and Cyprus and Greece.
Righteous. Wow. That's sometimes it's nice to hear this because sometimes I think I'm ambitious and then I hear something like this and I go, oh, okay, yeah, that's yeah. I feel
Latin, also Latin, like Ecuador and Brazil and Chile and Mexican.
you want all of them. I think that's what this is building up to, Samuel. So
Mm.
one more time, we're going to do this thing in impromptu networking. So you're going to be invited to jump into this one-on-one for the third and final go round of, what is something that you're just fascinated and curious to know more about. And I think
Yeah.
we'll see. Oh, Brittany, I think you're by yourself. So if you want, you can hang out with me.
Jeremy, just so you know, I set the I did send you a thing, whatever that is.
Design brief. Awesome.
Thank you.
Great.
Yep.
Cool. Yo, Brittany. Oh, oh, oh.
So we were
break
in the,
something?
we were in the same room again together, Jeremy. So I'm not sure if we need to reallocate or
Oh, yep, we can self-organize our way into there. Have either of you
Yes,
not spoken with
we-
Brittany?
I've not spoken to Brittany. Brittany, you're muted at the moment.
Always. Always. I was saying the same thing. Me and Julia started together. So me and
Oh,
Abdullah.
okay.
And then
Okay,
Sounds
so
Room 3 is yours.
okay, so let's go into. So it says you're in room 4, Brittany. Do you want me to join room 4?
Sure.
How do I reallocate myself? You might need to reallocate. That's it. Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay, see you in a second.
And engage. So, Julia, what are you curious about, lady?
Using liberating structures for innovation, for problem solving.
Yeah.
In general, this is big umbrella thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's the tent that I think liberating structures can. Well, one of them. I mean, they can be used as a reflective tool as well. I mean, they're thinking tools basically. So not just solving problems, but general sense making, which has a tendency of also solving problems. But okay, cool.
It's
And
interesting observation about general sense making. Good point.
yeah, I mean, but I mean that also has this thing about acting in the world.
Mhm.
And so how did liberating structures as tools for this problem solving sort of show up on your radar or on your path?
Because of my coach from Agile field.
Oh, okay.
How about you?
So I was once upon a time, I did business development, and that's how I discovered product development, because I was in a startup and I was the client contact guy. And so I did a couple tours as Scrum Master / business developer, both of like 2 years in length. And so that gave me some familiarity with like Scrum, but I was on the development team. And at some point in 2019, I made a transition into Agile coaching, and was like totally out of my depth. You know, I'd never worked with multiple teams, especially teams that I wasn't in as a participant really. And so I was just drowning. I'm like, oh my God, people are looking at me like, how do I do things? And I have no idea even where to begin. Because I mean, all I know how to do is be on the team and then go, well, we don't know how to do things, but you know, we're going to try some stuff and see what happens. And so liberating structures came on my path in the perfect time to go, oh, this is a really functional way for me to go, I have no idea what the solution is, but these are tools that we can use to find out together. And so I just dove in like as deep as one possibly could. And they have now become like the cornerstone of my toolkit.
So did you learn it by yourself, all the way by yourself, or coached by someone, joining groups?
I mean, there's an interesting gradient there. So my learning was extraordinarily self-directed. I joined a number of different liberating structure user groups, and I went to all of their events, and I had a very strict rule for myself that basically said, if I go to a meetup and I learn something, I have to try something I learn the next day.
Oh,
And I was in a context where I had enough things that I could try them right away. And people were very gracious about it as well. Like I would go to a meeting and go, I have this weird rule. I have to try something I learned yesterday. And they were like, well, okay, go ahead. Fine. And yeah, then you practice, you learn, and fall on your face. And yeah, then you host some more meetup groups, and then next thing you know, you're hosting 50 events a year. And yeah.
Is your event a weekly event?
Yeah, this session I've been running every week except for the first Monday of the month. Then I run a different session, which is the Think Slow Dojo. That's much more liberating structures as liminal tools. So very much around sense making and reflection and personal stuff.
That's cool.
I'm very interested. I'll probably start joining.
Awesome. Well, you're here now, and that's a radical start. So we've got 2 design briefs I hear on the docket for today. Before we get right into that aspect of the practical space, let me share the link to the doc that we're basically going to be working through, and we can all jump right in and either use it or see it together. Oh, yep. And that's weird. Pasting works. Great. Perfect. So thanks for joining, more or less. What we're going to do is we're going to give and get help on 2 different design briefs today and offer some consultation. And that consultation will be our context to learn and explore new liberating structures. We're going to do that with the help of WISE Crowds, which is itself one of the liberating structures patterns. The one we just completed was impromptu networking, super handy. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the liberating structures learning journey, and that is the whatever number slide that you'll see. I guess I can share a screen since I'm talking about this thing. And away we go. So we've now completed our check-in. So liberating structures have development phases. So no matter where you're at on the liberating structures learning journey, there's a job for you in this call that is going to help us all have a great call and learn a whole shit ton. So even if you're a despairing cynic, you've never seen any liberating structures, you don't know what they're called, then you can help us out by challenging our assumptions and using that relative lack of familiarity to our advantage by pointing at things that you go, well, I don't know about that. Why would that work? It's a really hard question to ask, but if you can do that, we'll have an extraordinarily productive call. Even if you're a cautious optimist, if you've only experienced ±5 structures, what you can help us out is ensure that we don't get caught up in jargon and inside baseball language. So whenever you see somebody mentioning something and you go, I don't know what that is, again, it's a really hard job, but if you can raise your hand and say, hey, what do you mean? How does that work? Can you unpack that for me? That will help ensure that we are all staying together and making this call accessible for the widest audience possible. If you are a rapturous super user, if you're familiar with ±half of the liberating structures catalog, then I really want to invite you to really step into the spotlight or the hot seat in some respect and to answer questions that you may have never answered before. So if the question comes for clarification and you go, ooh, I think I know how that goes, but I'm not sure exactly, just jump right into it and, get some reps in. We're a super warm room, and this is about as best a chance as you're ever going to find to test out your familiarity and get some support. For those of you in the Maestro Minimalist category, if you're familiar with more or less the entire liberating structures repertory, then the invitation for you to help us out is to make space for those super users and other folks to explain stuff first, and then add on whatever knowledge, experience, and building on their input with your body of knowledge. And if we all do those things, then we will have a wildly productive call and have the best life humanly imaginable. For our next step, I have no idea why this has not actually opened the Word document, but a link to the Word document. So I guess I'm gonna have to go into this other thing and do this other thing. Sorry about that. What you'll see is a link to, can anybody else edit this document, or does it show up the same way when you open it as well? You can't edit it as well.
No, I can't edit it.
That is.
I can edit it with Google. I can open it with Google Docs.
Yeah, you should, and everyone should have edit access. That's
I
You
do.
see open with Microsoft Word on your top, and you have the drop down. So choose the Google Docs, I guess. Yes.
yes.
This way.
Yulia, you're my hero. Thank you so much. And now I'm less of an idiot. And it looks like you guys are already blazing speed. Exactly. So I'm running an experiment with Web3. That's the thing I'm the most fascinated with. So if that means something to you, then definitely add your name to the guest book, and I will send you a link to download perhaps your first NFT, perhaps your nth NFT. If this is something totally new to you, then put your name on the sign the guest book, and I will send you a link to receive a non-fungible token. And what that is all about is a big experiment to help us see if we can use these tools to develop a track record and generate a proof of our learning journey, so to speak. I can talk forever about that. Don't worry about it. Sign the guest book and I'll send you something. What we're really here to do, though, is this WISE crowd structure. So is there anybody in the call who would like to walk us through WISE crowds so I don't continue talking forever and ever and ever?
Can I have the Zoom link for next meeting, please?
It is this link. We use the same link every Monday.
But can I have it in the chat, please?
Oh, sure.
Samuel, you can also pull it right off the little green button on the top left.
Copy invite link. And that's it. So for the sake of expedience, then I'm just going to jump us through WISE crowds. So WISE crowds, it works as follows. Those of you who have offered us a design brief are going to play the role of client and tell us about your design brief, and that for a couple minutes. And then everybody else is going to play the role of consultant and ask you some clarifying questions for a couple minutes. And then the clients are going to turn off their webcam and microphone, but still listen very carefully as the consultants then discuss what structures they might suggest to address your design brief. And then the client will come back into the call and tell us what they take away from that consultation, if there's any particular points that require that they want to know more about. And then we'll move on to the next round. Does anybody have questions about that pattern that we're going to make use of itself? Then with
What's the difference with Troika Consulting?
That's a great question. Not much, as you see. The difference with Troika Consulting is that WISE Crowds has more than 2 people consulting. So that's the biggest difference. There is some additional things that we can do with WISE crowds. For example, when we smash it together with a user experience fishbowl, which would be to actually get multiple groups to consult on one specific design brief. So that's an option that we could use if it turns out we only have one relevant design brief. But I understand that we have 2 design briefs today. Is that correct? John, you said you sent us a design. Okay. And does anybody else have a help request or a design brief that we might work with?
I think I did send. Not sure if we sent the same one.
I sent a design brief about tomorrow, Yulia.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm not familiar with the term design brief, so it's like a request for help. That's the form we filled out. Okay.
Yeah, basically. I mean, for the purpose of this call, since what we're trying to do is a little bit of self-recursion, we're trying to be super meta and use liberating structures around learning liberating structures. What we've identified is that there's sort of four pieces of information that help us get what we need in order to consult effectively. The first one is context, so some background about where this help request is happening. Place is another way to think about it. The second portion is the purpose. So what's the intended outcome of the meeting, workshop, session, whatever you're trying to accomplish. The third one is participants. So, who do you need to have involved in order to be successful in accomplishing your purpose? And then the fourth one is a bit of a catch-all around the sort of particulars. So is this an offline, online meeting? How long do you have to do it? Like real nuts and bolts type stuff. And with those 4 pieces of information, we've got everything we need basically to get to work and offer some form of advice. So Yulia, John, tell us about your design brief.
John, I will let you lead.
Okay. So Yulia and I are leading tomorrow a workforce development session with a bunch of people from workforce offices around the area. This is gonna, there's gonna be a New York State Assemblyman there presiding, I guess, and we're doing this in conjunction with the Newburgh Library. And so that's the context. Like, it's this second in a series of, it's called a summit, workforce summit. And so Yulia and I are involved in educating people to learn software development so that they can become they can get real jobs, as opposed to flipping burgers at McDonald's or whatever. They can learn a skill, they can get hired. And there's a real dearth of workers. We need everyone needs to hire people, and there's lots of people who need to be hired, but there's a mismatch in skill. Now, Yulia and I are interested in software development. However, this conference is about technology and manufacturing. So we thought we'd use liberating structures to engage everybody so that they're spurred to action, and so, our goal is that at the end of the session, that everyone's got some real action items that they can do and move forward with it, and then, move the whole effort forward. How did I do, Yulia? Is that pretty good?
I will add a couple of words. Yes, I will add a couple of words. So the thing is about participants, they are getting paid as like government jobs and not-for-profits to address workforce development last 30 years-ish, if not more, and there is no results. So as you can see, there is no interest to get the real jobs, but general labor in the area, not offering much advanced jobs. And all these nonprofits and all these governments and all these educational institutions are just doing the routine they used to do all 30 years long. No innovation, same old thinking, and there's no call to action for them. It's okay to be as it was. So how we can change this, I would say. There's a lot of manufacturers in the area, and those are struggling to find advanced talents, while colleges are not teaching much about it. And given technology, remote jobs, also there's a need which is not seen or recognized or acknowledged in the area. So we just want to find the losing ends. Innovate what was before versus what can it be.
All right, so let me check and see if my baseline understanding checks out. So the context is this: you guys are creating this conference for workforce development, or there is a conference for workforce development. And where does this sort of a question I have, park it, but where does this sort of workshop that we're talking about slot into the flow of that conference? Is one question that jumps out to me. And there is a baseline of the status quo in workforce development basically sucks and hasn't really accomplished much in the last 30 years. So it sounds like the purpose of this session is to sort of shake that up, maybe do some self-reflection and see if we can get the system to get into pursue a different mode, more or less. And then the participants, it sounds, I get a sense of this being like an intersection between, is this only governmental or the intersection between government and industry? How do these things sort of meet up? Who's in the room?
Educators.
Yeah, it's going to be people who represent nonprofit organizations in the area that support people to get jobs, as well as people in people whose job it is to go get other people jobs or to research that. So that's the workforce offices, and then all the
Colleges.
nonprofits. Oh, and religious organizations too.
And colleges.
Colleges. Yeah, so it's all these do-gooders. And then of course there's going to be some county and state representatives there as well, and community organizers.
Okay.
So where it's located, I mean, this is part of the conference, so we expect to have 2 hours conference altogether, and we expect that there will be a panel, or like all invited speakers need to speak somehow. So we assume all the assumptions, all uncertainties given. We assume there will be some talking panel kind of set for 1 hour, and 1 hour for networking or just to do something innovative, brainstorming by or facilitated by us as our liberating structures facilitators, hopefully.
So our thought is that if we can, we'll set up a fishbowl, a user experience fishbowl with the experts. There's 7 speakers, and if we can do that in a user experience fishbowl style, might lead to more interaction and engagement.
Am I allowed to ask a question, Jeremy?
Yeah, of course. Clarifying questions. Shoot.
So Yulia and John, what will make the session be a good session from your perspectives?
It's a great question. You want to answer that, Yulia?
Sure. Action items and thinking differently. Action item list. If people will get something out of this different than what they used, and it will be applicable to them, not like, I wish somebody will do that, but thinking about, oh, now I know 1 thing or 2 things I can do differently now.
Yeah, and I would add that that the participants walk away going, wait, I'm the one who can make the difference, as opposed to I can bring good ideas to other people who make the difference, but I'll be the one and I can do action and bring people along with me rather than just go back and report.
Right.
These things have been information gathering sessions as opposed to brainstorming and getting into action. And so what we're really looking to do is to generate action.
Yeah, there is a kind of secondary goal which is invisible for participants one, but all people in the area are kind of tired from seeing all these talkative summits where people come and talk like panelists, and there is no action items. There is like no big difference. They come for the conferences for only reason to hopefully to network after that. So that's what we want to change, to experience something different and empowering.
Any other clarifying questions?
So I've got one more.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Danella.
The people that are going to be there, have they been made to come, or is it voluntary?
There was an invitee list, but actually it's open list for all who expressed the interest. The initial idea was just like, there are so many different initiatives, so many grants given to different entities. Those are entities not cooperating. And we were interested to find out what's going on, who is doing what. This was the original session, which was done. And now we just want to build on that. I see the hand.
Yeah, and with that, what's the actual physical folks there, or is it 100% virtual?
physical, 100% physical, in person.
Okay, and when you say fishbowl, is it a circle structure or the panelists on the stage? What's the physical layout going to be in your agenda items?
Well, if it's up to us, it will be, it will be a circle, just to do the user experience fishbowl structure. But I don't know how it's going to go.
And how big a room and space are you talking about?
Room is big. It's 60 or 70 or 80 square feet, but it's big auditorium, and it's flat. There is no stage on that. We usually
you control the setup, the welcome, the coffee, the 2 hours captivity. You got the audience.
It's hard to say control, so kind of we impact the flow, yes. But there will be a table for the speakers, like those who are invited as a speakers, set up. And there will be like auditorium set up, generally speaking, but movable. Some round tables can be in the room.
And is there an agenda?
Not hard copied as far as I know. We just have the list of speakers.
Okay, and are you the moderator? Who are the moderators? The Phil Donahue, Oprah Winfrey folks?
Yes, so there are two entities moderating it. The library representative, which is woman and library director, and the company we are representing with John. So we can moderate it together, or I expect John moderating it.
And
Well,
what's the
ideally,
topic?
it would be me moderating it with the library director and Yulia.
Very
ahead.
good. And what's your actual topic of the meeting?
Workforce development, in technology, thinking about technology engineering, like manufacturing technology in digital, but workforce development in technology.
And how many participants?
Again, expectations are about 35, 40,
45?
30, 40, 40,
Okay, 30 to 40. Cool.
30 to 40. Mhm.
All right, any other clarifying questions? Or are we good enough for now? Safe enough to start? Cool, then Yulia, John, I'll invite you guys both to turn off your webcams and mic, and we'll get to work for you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, to treat this design brief, the two questions that I'm most interested in bringing is what structures jump out as relevant to address this design brief, and how might we string them together in order to offer them a bit of a game plan? So with that being said, what jumps out at you guys?
So Jeremy, can I just ask then, so if you're using Wise Crowd, which obviously we're in the process of, would you now be suggesting liberating structures that would work in this scenario, or are we just meant to come up with ideas of what they could try? That's where I'm a bit like, I don't quite know what we're meant to be doing.
Yeah. So thanks for the question. I think the end result is that we can offer these guys as something that is as maximally concrete with minimal additional research time as possible.
Okay.
So that I think to come to be as narrowly specific as we can to suggest specific structures that they can use to apply towards this goal of getting towards some action would be our desired outcome. So it's kind of both of in between these two sort of polarities that you're offering. So we're trying to come up with suggestions that they could try. And we're using the structures to sort of say, well, here's a particular tool that you could use in order to accomplish that.
Okay, got you. Okay. So I've got an idea, but it's not a liberating structure.
Awesome, hit me.
So I would use a 0 to 10 approach. And 0 being it's really rubbish and it's going to fail, or I'm going to fail. And 10 being I've achieved my goal, whatever that goal might be.
Mhm.
And under the 10, so the facilitators would say, what does 10 look like? Write down all the words that would describe your 10, your goal, your outcome, your vision, whatever it might be. And facilitate so that you fill a page with lots of words, lots of descriptions, lots of what am I like in this 10-10 world? What am I doing in this 10-10 world? What am I doing with other people? What other interventions are needed, etc. So you just get lots of words. And the 0 is just a few words to describe what would it look like? What would I be like if I was failing completely, doing absolute 0, had no motivation to do anything. So not let people get stuck in the 0, but just have a few ideas. And then once you've got 2 sets of words, you look at, so where am I now based on those 2 sets of words? And if I say, well, I'm maybe about a 5 because I've done some things, but I'm nowhere near a 10, but I'm not I'm in the gutter or in the rubbish heap. I am doing something. And once you've got everyone to identify the number where they're at on that 0 to 10 scale, then you get them to look at what's the next number up. So if I'm saying I'm a 5, I would say, well, what do you need to do to get yourself to a 6? What smart objective, what action could you do to get you to a 6? So a couple of actions that will help you move forward. And you could use 1, 2, 4 all, which is a liberating structure for that, where you're doing it yourself, first of all, then you go into pairs to talk about it with somebody else, then you go into 4s to talk about it, because lots of ideas would be shared. Not sure how the all bit would work in that, if there's 30 or 40 people, but that's one for us to talk about. But it's a great way of making people not feel like it's too overwhelming, but they come away with doing something different.
Awesome. That sounds great. And I know that as the sliding spectrogram. So which I think is on there's a Trello board somewhere on the internet around liberating structures in development that have a lot of tools similar to what you're describing. So that I have some familiarity with what you're talking about. So that's a name that they might be able to use to Google this. I've also heard of it as a measuring stick. But cool.
And
thanks,
I would call it an outcome setting scale. So I don't know if anything comes up. I just learned it in my coaching world. But it's a good measure of success, knowing where you're at, whatever the measure is. Doctors quite often talk about it in terms of pain. Where's your pain threshold, or where's your pain level?
Awesome. So what else jumps up for us as far as structures, Jeffrey?
Yeah, just a couple of quick points and knots. Maybe using the storytelling approach, set the stage at the beginning, herd the cats in, get them away from the coffee. At the end of this 2 hours, this is what we hopefully see. Paint pictures for them that maybe we don't know where we all are individually, or we're on a tricycle on the internet highway, super highway going 100 miles an hour. Other people are, but we're on a tricycle, or we have 4 flat tires and we don't know any difference, just a bumpy ride. And similar, using the 1, 2, 4, that's a great approach, but also going low tech, no tech. Everybody will have their smartphone with them, their laptops. Maybe they can pull those off to the side, or what presentation or what note taking you're using. Use butcher blocks, have them go to the brainstorming sides, blurt out their idea, breathe on those as the 1 to 2 to 4 to the all group, but give them sort of working, because the goal is to move them to action. And then also give them a story of like a green revolution, that everybody in here wants to change the world, but hopefully it'll be green. There'll be more green US dollars in the people's pocket. They'll have a functioning job and contribute to society and do these things. And maybe really depends on the facilitator to steer that, have a clock watcher to kick them under the table to say, hey, we're stalling, got to put a pin in it, have somebody take a post-it, put that great idea on the change in the world peace butcher block, and then what they can actually work on, and then they can take back to their own individual life and their agencies and what changes they can actually do in the next 30, 60, 90 days.
Cool. So we got some general specifications. So storytelling jumps out. This no tech, low tech solution, the green revolutions, hashtag solar punk. What else jumps out at us for like ways we could approach this, structures that we might use to bring to bear for this design brief?
Triz comes to mind, but I'm not quite sure how you'd use it with that number of people, because Triz is about what's the worst case scenario if it was all going completely wrong. And that can quite often get people out of their stuck state, because you're forcing them into an even worse situation than they are now.
Yep, I love Triz for this. How do we create an even worse case scenario?
What is this word you're saying? Triz?
Triz, T-R-I-Z. So Triz, like Antonella was saying, invites people to actively brainstorm to how to create an even worse case scenario. So as bad as things are, I think there's an interesting synthesis between these two things, right? This measuring stick or this this sliding spectrogram and Triz. If you take that sliding spectrogram, let's just use that as a macro structure, and think about the structures that we might input into it. It sounds like talking about the 10, like thinking about best case scenario, a structure that I might use to approach that could be something like appreciative interviews. So appreciative interviews would ask people to rather than describe an abstract 10, it would actually say, hey, tell a story about like the most wildly successful story you have about being in this space when you really felt like you were making an impact in people's lives, and we were delivering on the brief of making the world a better place. So rather than, like I said, just sort of what does 10 look like, what's your version of 10? And then going to the space of what does 0 look like, Triz feels like a really great way to treat that invitation of, hey, how do we create an even worse, dystopian nightmare out of, workforce development that actually, crushes people's human spirit and gets them to quit and drop out and, just waste lots of time and energy that we could be using for even more productive goals. And then in this space of like, where are we at? I would like something that looks kind of like a walking conversation. In physical space, this is really extraordinarily simple. You just basically create a number line on the floor and put your feet where you think we are. What's up, Samuel?
Is it 3 o'clock every Monday? Because I'm in the UK.
The call?
Yeah, this one.
Yes.
Right. Bye.
All right. Take care. So like inviting people to like just move their feet where they are, where they think, the current status quo of the space is, whether that's their personal perspective or the larger context. It's relatively straightforward. And I think something like 15% solutions is a good frame of reference. Sounds like you were just jumping in there, Jeff. Can you unpack 15% solutions for us?
Well, no, not really. I was going to say use a word chart to make that word graph and have everybody in the audience vote and show up on a screen in the corner where they're all at with that word and how many folks can join on it. So I don't really know the 15% I know trying to get a win-win situation where most of the audience is getting something out of it, your presenter's getting something out of it, and that'd be a better than, 50%, 15%, at least moving towards accepting that there might be a way of doing something differently, I guess.
Yeah, so a 15% solution is an invitation, basically, to think about what can you do right now with no more additional resources, no more additional authority, like what is within the space of your individual agency to make a difference about the way things are right now. So if we talk about this goal of like getting to action, I think this is an extraordinarily valuable exercise in terms of sticking the landing of like, hey, let's not think about writing some gigantic grant proposal, creating a manifesto, or for a plan to transform the entire galaxy. Like, what's the thing that you, with nobody else's help, with nobody else's approval, you can just go and do to move the needle? An alternative to this entire game plan, which I think is actually quite good, right? This idea of 15% solutions, Triz, or excuse me, appreciative interviews into Triz, into some form of sliding spectrogram, into 15% solutions. That's a pretty good program. It's a little bit more than an hour. Another exercise that could be a very good alternative that I'd like to also suggest is Ecocycle Planning. So Ecocycle Planning invites folks to map the portfolio of activities. And this could be for them both as individuals. This could be for the entire workforce development space, to just catalog and index what is it? I mean, what in God's name are we doing here, people? Right? And to use the visual map of the ecocycle in order to not just generate that map, but make sense of where those activities are and belong. So I'll put an image in the doc, and I guess I can share a screen to unpack it as well. And somewhere in here, we will find one of many. So here we go, Ecocycle Planning, right? So if we as a group, or everybody basically makes an inventory about what's the status of the entire industry of workforce development, let's think high level. Like, what is all of the things that go on in the space from the government perspective, the industry perspective, education? Once you basically brainstorm that laundry list, you would chart those activities to the ecocycle. So gestation, what are those activities that right now that are just sort of theoretical, that haven't really seen the light of day, but what are the ideas that are in the space that we might want to try? Birth, of that portfolio of actions, what are the activities that are actually have had time and energy go into them and are starting to see the light of day, but still need a lot more work to become viable? Maturity, of all of that portfolio of activities, what are the things that are actually generating value, that are actually out there making a difference, that are actually helpful? And creative destruction, what are the activities that actually are not working for folks, that just seem to be sort of taking up space, and that we might actually want to think about creative destruction? And then you'll notice these two traps on both the extreme right and extreme left. The poverty trap being what ideas are sort of trapped in gestation and not getting the time, energy, and resources they need to move into the world of birth. And the rigidity trap, what are the things that actually are in maturity? They work well, they work maybe not great, but they work, that actually need to move into creative destruction and abandon, so that we have new resources and energy for these ideas that are in gestation. So thinking about that as a larger macro structure to invite everybody to come to some sense making around the portfolio of activities for this entire space. And there's a number of different ways that you can do this in terms of thinking about your level of abstraction. You can invite people within different industry groups. So educators make one ecocycle, people in public service make another ecocycle, people in NGOs make their own ecocycle. Then you can sort of compare notes. And what you're really looking to do once you have created this map is go, okay, what are the things that are stuck in the poverty trap that we need to get out? And what are the things that are stuck in the rigidity trap? How do we create motion and life in this portfolio? What are the things that we really want to put our attention to making progress? So that's an alternative. Anything else jump out for you guys? There is so much chaos in my household. Oh, there is chaos and there are children. I'm just going to spam all of my Ecocycle templates onto the doc and they can take a look. Coming back to this idea, I notice around a user experience fishbowl. And I think about how to do that with some level of actual energy and fidelity. So the first thing that pops up is like, what is the conversation I would want experts to have that I would love to really sit in and learn from, and that would actually be valuable for me as a participant to hear? So like the invitation, the provocation that sparks off that is actually quite good. And another alternative that jumps out at me that I might really go for above and beyond everything is what I need from you. Has anybody tried what I need from you? So what I need from you. The guest book is on the doc. Or you can send me your email.
A page
Jeff?
from the change manager, change implementation to challenge the folks to actually write down those 15% solution invitations and call them to action, and then give yourself a good 15-minute resum up, and then call to action at the end to get them fired up and to go out there and leave the invitation to come back and have further developments.
Yeah, so to really give people some time and space to think deeply about their 15% solution. So let me unpack what I need from you. So if we have these clearly, it sounds like there's a plurality of relatively clearly defined groups: NGOs, public servants, people in the educational sector. So what I need from you would make use of this plurality and basically invite people to self-organize into their tribe. You could use 1, 2 for all for this. But to go into your relative tribe, and to think about, for these other tribes, what are the requests that I actually have? What would it be helpful? What do I want and need? If I'm in education, what do I need from both NGOs as well as from public servants? And to make 2 requests of each group that is outside of your own, and then to send effectively an emissary into a central fishbowl to exchange those requests with the representatives from those other groups. Go, hey, as educators, we need this and we need this. and to just exchange those requests in that first round, and then to go back into your subgroup or your community and invite folks to respond very simply with either a yes, I'll do that for you, a no, that's not possible for us. We'll try, you know, no guarantees, but we'll give it a go. Or actually, your request is not clear, and we don't know even what to make of it. So, like, whatever. And then to come back into sending those emissaries to exchange responses to those help requests. And then once more, after you've received your response, go back into your relative tribe and to think like, well, what are the implications? Shit, you know, we made a request for what we thought we needed. We got a no. Oh dear, what do we do? We got a yes, hooray. What do we do to make that actionable? Right? This is a little bit more abstract, I notice, considering that these people, although they share an industry context, they don't necessarily share a specific context. But I think that's an interesting way to think about the conversation that I might want to host in that user experience fishbowl. Because the trick about that is I want a conversation that is interesting and doesn't require much prompt or much activation from a facilitator or from somebody on the outside. I mean, the whole vibe behind a user experience fishbowl is like, okay, you know, maybe this is a dated example, but Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos share a cab to the airport, and we get to sit in on that conversation, and they just go. Right. So what is the equivalent invitation that you could offer these different, industry experts that would just be like, oh, wow, how fascinating would it be for us to get to sit in on that conversation? And then think about sending folks into just groups of 5 to 4 or 5 to debrief and offer additional questions to be treated by that subgroup of panelists. So these are the ideas that jump out to me. That's the most salient. Does anybody have anything else, or should we bring our clients back in? All right, then, gang. Julia, John, come on back and tell us what you thought of our consultation. What might you be able to make use of? What do you got questions about?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you all, because it was, definitely a stunning conversation, and all the different ideas were great. I like this. I do like the idea of ecocycle planning, because it, there is this way of being that's kind of stuck, and for people to identify that might be useful. I thought about what I need from you, because that's a really nice exercise, and a nice mindset. We don't know how well those people will be able to articulate, or that there's enough diversity between participants. But I really liked what you said, Jeremy. Was what is the conversation I want experts to have that will be really valuable and useful for all participants to hear. That's a great prod at the beginning. Julia, what do you think?
Yes, we are on the same page. All these tools are possible. Some are more advanced, and hopefully we'll have the summit number 2, number 3, number X to continue those exercises, just to explore this challenge, because this is a challenge. For now, I think the main thing would be for them to recognize this is a challenge, and where are we in this scale? And it can be achieved with the storytelling. Absolutely, yes, it's a good idea. Thank you, Jeffrey. And I think Triz is a little bit advanced. Ecocycle Planning is a little bit advanced for this first collaborative session, because it used to be not collaborative. It was panel and networking, period, right? So we are shifting them to collaboration, and we want them to experience this collaboration. So given that, nailing questions or just getting out questions they really care about and they're thinking probably first time, that's the big shift already itself. So saying that we didn't touch base the wicked question, which we were thinking of, but all what was said, low tech, no tech, storytelling with the green or future best world, those are triggers which can make them thinking, speaking. And what we want is the format, how to utilize this into the, how to put it, this together. All these people are used to say, oh, that resonates with me, and they build on top of this, and this creates the chaos. What we want to do, this chaos, to put into the streamlined flow. And that's what we're looking with the concept to get as a concept. 15 solution is definitely like the winner as the finishing exercise. If we will have less time, probably 1, 2 for all. Thank you for that. You're confirming this. I'm talking and talking, sorry about that, but that's actually excitement and appreciation for all ideas. We just need to think how to combine those together.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is, okay, all right, so we've got these 2 hours. How do we start? What's the middle?
Yep,
What's the end?
yep.
Yeah.
But I think we can do this with all these given advice now. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, I have to say that even, we have a plan, but, this conversation really gave more
Dive
substance
deep.
and clarity about how we go about this. We'll probably go with the 15% solution, as part of the conversation, because that's going to have people be generating their own actions, and inspire others to generate actions.
If we would be having the opportunity to group educators with educators and other clusters, what I need from you is another good exercise.
Yeah,
This definitely is.
yeah.
They
So
never thought about it.
Right.
Altogether is huge. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, our pleasure. I guess I'm thinking, so if I can get this conversation started, right? So this is maybe an interesting segue to talk a little bit about invitation, right? So
Yeah, you're right.
in order to spark that conversation with in the user experience fishbowl, we want like how do we get ourselves to that conversation?
Yeah.
So in terms of invitation, like the pro tips for invitation generally are to avoid judging and framing, right? So to have a sort of non-evaluative prompt that sort of prevents anybody from effectively being triggered, really.
So maybe as an opening question, it shouldn't be, how come all these conferences are so boring?
Yeah, exactly. Why do you guys suck so bad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What you typically want to do is you want to open up some avenues for thinking, right? Instead of narrowing them down. A good invitation is specific about the problem, but ambiguous about the perspective. So it actually invites heterodoxy by saying, hey, here's a situation, here's a problem, here's an object, look at it from however you want. Thanks for hanging out, Antonella. And a good invitation has a tendency of being slightly abstract, meaning that it gives you this quality of head scratcher that is really hard to like reflexively answer. It's like, well, geez, what do you actually even mean by that question? I think I might know, but like I said, since I'm so ambiguous about the perspective, I'm not quite sure where we're at. So in the doc again, I put a template that I use to formulate invitations. So if you can think whatever zero, whatever is that central problem that you want to be specific about, put that in the middle. And then I think about what are the 3 different avenues that I would like to open up thinking about that central thing. So that looks like given X, how is it given X and A, B, and C, what sort of comes to mind for you? And let people sort of rip and take it however they like. What's up, Jeffrey?
Yeah, sorry, trying to find the unmute button. So with that, using the storytelling and John, if you are getting a foot of snow and it's the wet stuff, maybe it'll be wet off, but definitely using humor and then not to get anybody's trigger, but to keep them on that non-judgmental anecdotes about I came from Japan and came to Baltimore, and a pusher in Japan was meaning something different than a pusher in Baltimore. Same word, but the pusher in Japan was pushing people on the subway train before COVID to shove them in the sardine and get everybody to work, and so the doors could close, versus a pusher selling drugs on the corner in Baltimore. Or even with the generational pissed, I heard an Aussie say, yeah, I'm pissed. I thought she was mad at me, but she was really drunk, with the generational definition. Same word, but totally different generation. Or someone says you're broke, meaning you don't have any money, or your organizational is bankrupt and broke and not thinking, not being creative, just not to get those triggers going.
Yeah, so when I think
Yeah,
about
that's very good.
this, what might be the central thing, situation, or topic that you might want to open up this discussion around? So this might be this idea of like the regenerative green revolution, the solar punk future might be a good place to start. Right? So
Or even with green, not solar, but green as in dollars and money. You're here for workforce. Here, I got some shovels out there, or some snow shovels or ditch stuggles to get the water out of the way, or I'm going to put you all to work here for the next 2 hours. Thanks for coming. And then moving them to where you want to get them.
Great.
Mm.
All of those are great tips. I think the invitation is the key for us. Yes, find the trigger with the invitation.
and that's the hardest part of work. So
It's the hardest part. Yeah.
I wish you well. And it would be radical if you let us know how it goes, right? If you can come back and do some form of debrief of like, well, this is what we landed on. This is how it actually went. This is how we might do it again. That could close a meaningful learning loop for everybody. So thanks guys for your time, attention, and energy, and for joining this Wise Crowds design call. We hope to see you next time.
Jeremy, this was really excellent. Thank you so much for putting this together. And Jeffrey, thank you for all your input. I think this was really valuable. And I'm going to start making a regular practice to join you because it's pretty fun.
Awesome. Well, like I said, most every week. We'll see you around.
All right, great. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
See ya.
Take care.